Hello, Imaginers. Thank you for tuning in live with us. Please let me know that you can hear me, that you can see me, that everything is coming through okay. We are going to just do a little bit of an introduction as you all start coming in and tuning in and sharing different things. Please leave a comment. Let us know where you are watching from. Um, Jeff and I are both on the East Coast in the United States, so we're in the same time zone. Um, Hello, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi.
Um, so, as everybody starts coming in, I'm going to just do a quick introduction. My name is Scott Weidenkifowitz, and I am the content and community manager here at Imagen. If we haven't met before, it is nice to meet you now. My goal is to help you get the most out of Imagen so you can spend less time worrying about the tedious post-production and you can focus more about what you love. And I want you to be involved. So please start asking questions. First, share where you're tuning in from, as I said, but please start getting your questions coming in for Jeff, for me, whatever you have going on. We've got James from Louisville, Kentucky. Good morning, James. Nice to see you here. So if you are brand new to Imagen, welcome. I'm very glad that you're here with us. Again, if you have any questions, any demo requests for us during the live stream, please comment and ask. That's what this is all about. And if you're watching the replay, if a friend shared this with you, I'm very happy you are here. It's a bummer you couldn't comment live. You'll know you're watching the replay because it will say that it was live and it's a replay. So just comment with the word replay if you're watching the replay. So we were supposed to have Jeff and Lori Poole here, but hello, Missouri. Nice. Lori couldn't make it. Jeff, good morning. Can you
Good
share?
morning. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Better than what's going on in your household, apparently.
Yeah, we've been traveling a lot, and you know how when you travel and you've got a baby, the crud gets you sometimes, and it got me early on, and so I'm coming down off the tail end of it. Hopefully, I'm not going to be hacking on camera all day today, but Lori and the baby are right in the middle of it, and he's cutting a tooth at the same time, so probably not a good idea to have them on there with a screaming baby and Lori not feeling well and baby not feeling well.
Yeah.
So we're sorry that Lori can't be here, but she's home with the baby sick.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We're gonna miss her. But fortunately, you're a couple who runs a business and you know her business as well. She knows your business. So
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
so it's good.
Yes.
We we're still able to make this happen. Hello, Jen from Atlanta, Georgia. A little bit closer to you.
Yep. That's right. Hey guys.
Um, Jeff, you and Lori own a photography business that has three different, I'm going to call them studios in one, basically. It's one
Correct.
studio, but three different businesses in one. Can you share a little bit about what they
Yeah.
are, how that works?
So essentially, it's one studio. It's we own and operate Indigo Silver Studio, and we're located in Wilmington, North Carolina. And kind of the three genres that we focus on are weddings, headshots, and boudoir. Lori is pretty much full time boudoir. That's all she does. And she actually has a shoot tomorrow and Thursday, which is she's kind of freaking out that she's not gonna be
Yeah.
like good enough, back to do those shoots. But she handles all the boudoir in our studio, and I handle the weddings and the headshots. Now, we do photograph other things, but those are the three areas that we focus on the
Right.
most. That's where we put our marketing dollars. That's where we brand our studio for those three things. But we do photograph children and high school seniors and things of that nature as well. But weddings, headshots, and boudoir are kind of the three pillars of our business.
Awesome. So, um, when you discovered Imagine originally, at this point, over 2 years ago, almost, I
Yeah,
think, you dove headfirst into it and adopted it into your business pretty fast.
yeah.
But what's interesting is you went with talent AI profiles
Hmm.
over your own personal AI profiles, which no harm in that, of course. That's why we
Yeah.
have the talent AI profiles available. Can you share why you decided to go with a talent profile versus a personal AI profile?
Because I suck at editing. I I always tell people, do what you're good at, and I was good at getting it decent in camera, but I always struggled with finding a style. Different photographers have different styles.
Yep.
And whether it's split toning, whether it's a certain curves adjustment, they always have a certain style that they edit. And I always struggled finding a style. And
Yep.
so the only thing that I did was try to make them as consistent as possible. And when people ask what my style is, I just said, it's vibrant colors, bold black and whites, good highlights, good shadows. I didn't want to block out the highlights, I mean the shadows, or blow my highlights. And I wanted vibrant, bold colors and nice, rich black and whites. And so, but I always struggled getting it consistent, even though
Mm,
that's kind of where I wanted it. I struggled throughout the day with, like taking a batch of images and syncing them, because it just didn't work. Every image is slightly different, even though
yeah.
it's the same environment and similar lighting, they're slightly different. So
Yep.
syncing, it worked, but it really didn't. And when I found Imagen, and people kept asking, like, well, how's that going to be better than what you're doing? And I'm like, it's a computer. It's ones and zeros. It's way smarter than I will ever be. And when I ran my images through it and I saw how consistent they were, I
Mhm.
was like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not to mention, I had it back in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
blown away, because at the time, I was even using outside editors. I was using other companies, and they were
Mhm.
they were great
Right.
at getting it more consistent than I could get it, but it was 7 to 10 day turnaround.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
I found you guys, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is 100% consistent from image to image, and I get it back in 20 minutes, and it's half of what I'm paying these guys.
Yeah.
It's a no brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. My next question to you is actually going to be about consistency because definitely, you know, people are constantly seeing where if they have a if like what you said, if you have a group of images and even if they're from the same wedding, for example,
Mhm.
if you were to do a sync across, there's going to be slight variances if the sun moved a little bit, and
Absolutely.
now your white balance could be, a little bit off, or
Yeah.
um, what happens to me all the time because I went for the cheaper brand strobes is they
Mhm.
misfires quite often.
Yeah.
So so the consistency is definitely a big factor. So it's nice that it's been able to help you with that.
Mhm.
So what talent AI profiles have you used, and is it the same for each of the different type of photography you do, or do you use it one for headshots and one for weddings and
Yeah.
so on?
So I use Rachel Nielsen, I believe is her last name,
Hmm.
and it's called Timeless Color.
Yep.
That's the one that I use. And I use it for weddings and headshots. And Lori is in the process of, like, kind of learning it. I'm the tech guy, I'm
Hmm.
I'm the guy that does all the stuff, all the tech stuff in the studio. And Lori's in the process of building her own. So that's kind of where we're going with that, because she shoots in studio and her lighting is 100% consistent and
Right.
her images are consistent right out of camera. So very little editing on her part, but we are, kind of toying around with building a profile and seeing, if she can just make batch adjustments to things, and even speed up her process, because we do
Right.
shoot, edit, and sell same day in Boudoir. Whereas with weddings and headshots and things like that, there's some time in between that I'm editing. But I use Rachel Nielsen's Timeless Color, and right out of the gate, it doesn't really match the style. It's pretty, but it doesn't match what I was doing for
Hmm.
my style. But I
Yeah.
found that for what I was looking for, it was the most consistent.
Yeah.
And once I started doing the adjustments, then I within 10 minutes, 15 minutes of getting the images back, I could have it looking the way I want it to look with using those quick develop tools.
So okay. So what type of modifications have you historically done to to the photos with Rachel's profile timeless color to all of your photos? What have you historically done
Mhm.
every single time for the past 2 years?
Yeah. So I've got to post it right here on my computer. And essentially what I would do is, when it come in, while it's really pretty right out of the gate, it was a little flat for my style.
Mm,
So I would always bump the exposure by, like a third of a stop, just to get a
mhm,
little bit brighter.
Yeah.
I would bump the contrast up a little bit. I would bring the shadows back down, bring the highlights back up, so it's a little bit more in line with what I do. And then I add a little bit of vibrance, a little bit of saturation in there, and I pull the blacks down and the whites up just a bit. And then I would go into develop, and that would be all in the quick develop. And then I would go
Right.
into the develop module, and I would remove the curves adjustment that she did and
Interest
sync that across all of them, because I would just flatten the curves adjustment back out to linear
Interesting.
instead of, and so I would just sync that because it was a fixed value, and that was pretty much it. And it only took 10 minutes, 15 minutes, So in the grand scheme of things, now with Imagine taking a whole wedding and turning it into a
Yeah.
15 to 20-minute edit, even with 10 to 15 minutes on the back end of those adjustments,
Yeah.
I'm still
Way ahead of the
days
curve.
ahead of the curve from what
Yeah.
I was beforehand. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
now with
so let's
relative adjustments, it's like,
yeah, so you mentioned a couple times now that you use the quick develop feature inside of the grid view, the normal grid view, not in the develop
mhm,
module.
yeah,
So could you talk a little bit about why you do that, or why historically
yeah,
you have been doing that? Because we're gonna get to like the whole profile adjustments and how that's changed everything for you.
mhm,
But um, why are you using, and you're not the only one, there's so many doing it, but I don't
yeah,
think everybody knows that Lightroom has this capability. Can you talk about why you're using excuse
sure.
me, my voice, the quick develop feature?
Sure. So I think, when you're in Lightroom, the default when you go to edit photos, or process photos, is go to the develop module. And, most people think if you have a whole bunch of images that you want to edit together, then you're going to use something like Sync. And the only bad part about Sync is that when you have a body of images that are photographed in all different lighting sources and different exposure values and different white balances and different everything, and now you're trying to edit them, synchronizing them makes every single one of those images the exact value that you have. So if you have
Yeah.
plus 10 on contrast, it's going to be plus 10 on contrast across every one of those images. When
Yeah.
in reality, one image might only need plus 7, one image might need plus 12. There's going to be slight variances between those images at how much they actually need. And so when you sync it, now every image is the same. And it's going to get you close, but it doesn't get it exact. And what I found was, and I don't know where, I was asking Scott before we started. I was like, did I stumble across this method from you guys, or did I find it somewhere else online? Like, I don't remember at this point. It's been so long. I don't remember how I found the quick develop tools.
Right.
But in the library mode, there's a quick edit or quick develop there, and if you, by default, it's closed, and so I never looked at it. I just didn't. I had no idea what it was. I never looked at it, and then I found somewhere where they called them relative adjustment tools, and I feel like that's a better name for them because that's really what it does. And
Yeah.
and so when the edits come back from Imagen, now the AI has edited all these images to be very consistent. But the problem is that I would have with Rachel's is that they were consistent, but they were consistently a little flat for my taste, meaning the shadows
Yes.
were a little high, and the shadows had been bumped up really high, and the highlights had been pulled down, and the blacks had been pulled down, and the whites had
Yeah.
been pulled down, and so it was a little flat for my taste. Really
Yep.
pretty, but just for my taste.
Yeah.
And so with the relative adjustments, it takes what's there, and now it in the library mode, you just select all the images, and now if I want everything to be a little bit more punchy with the contrast, it's going to move it relative to where it's at. So if I tell it I want to move it a third, like a third of a stop, they use stops that they're just arrows. There's no numbers there, which is a
Yep.
little confusing. um,
Yep.
but I know that if I click the double arrow twice, it looks the way I want it to look.
Mm.
There's no
Yeah.
science behind it at all. And then when I go to highlights, if I click the double arrow 3 times, it looks the way I want it to look. And it took a
Yeah.
little trial and error. And I actually have a post-it on my computer that's like, it's a little diagram, and it's like highlights, 3 times up, double arrow, and it's all the things. So now when I get images back, I don't have to think. I just go in there and go click, 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 click,
Yeah.
click, 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 and it makes the images look the way I want because it moves those values relative to where they already are on a consistent basis instead of synchronizing it across the
Yeah.
board.
And there is like a couple. caveats with that. Like tone
Mhm.
curve is not possible through
Correct.
quick develop. So like in that case where you're flattening out the tone curve, now you have to go to the develop module and do a sync of the
Mhm.
tone curve. But because you're going to a flat tone curve, you don't have to worry about relativity. You're just
Yeah.
going for flat, right? So
Mhm.
um, there is a caveat, but it still works for your purpose. And I think the takeaway for this is like um, timeless color is a fantastic profile. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful
it's
profile.
beautiful.
It's highly consistent, obviously, because you're using it consistently and getting the same exact results.
Mhm.
Um, Everything you're doing is just to personalize that talent profile to your own without making a personal AI profile.
Yeah.
So that is now where let's move into profile adjustment, which it's now been out for about 2 weeks for everybody. And profile adjustments is this new feature in the Imagen app that lets you do all of this fun um, dialing in of all of your preferences before you even get your edits back. And it allows you to do this not only for a personal AI profile, not only for a personal AI profile that's been shared with you, but also for a talent AI profile. So now, no matter what profile you're using in the Imagen ecosystem, you can dial in the settings in real time. So let's talk about how that has impacted your workflow now. Um, have you
Yeah.
thrown away? You have not thrown away the post-it note.
No, I haven't because I mean, not for any other reason. Now I've got like 12 post-it notes here, and I'm a little bit of a post-it note guy. You know, they're like every Lori told me she's going to take my pad away from me
Oh boy.
because there's so many of them. But yeah, it blew my mind because I'm like, wait, how does it even know?
Mm,
Like, I don't know, I don't understand the magic or the wizardry that you guys put in it, but to be able to open um, her talent profile
mhm,
and say, okay, I like the profile. I just would like it to look a little bit more like me, you know, what I like. And to go in and I played with it 10 minutes. And now when I run my images through it, when they come back down, they look just like, you know, they would have looked if I had gone through and adjusted everything with the relative adjustments and then
right.
jumped over into the develop module and, you know, synchronize things. And like, you know, it's just another 15 minutes per event that you saved me, you know, by doing that. And that
Yep.
doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, 15 minutes times every event, like that builds up. And now knowing
I
that
mean,
I can just download those edits and I'm literally done. I don't have to do
that
anything.
that yeah, that 15 minutes of where you were looking at your post-it note, making those changes relative, then moving into develop module, making any constant changes, fixed,
Mhm.
syncing, those 15 minutes, now you can go outside with your kids and go for a walk and get some sunlight and
Mhm.
not be sitting in a studio editing or doing anything else. You can literally go
Yeah.
out and you know, get that fresh air and spend the 15 minutes doing that or hugging your kids or whatever
Yeah.
you want to do for
You know,
15 minutes.
and it's crazy. You know, I tell people, you know, they're like, I have people ask all the time about it, and
Mhm.
you know, I have a gallery on my phone, and I was like, look at this, look at these images, and they scroll through, and they go, yeah, they look amazing, and I'm like, I did not touch a slider in Lightroom, like that
Yeah,
entire gallery was done and
yeah,
never touched a slider in Lightroom, and people are like,
yeah,
wait, what? Now I have their
yeah,
attention, you know, and I show them blog posts and weddings, and I'm like, nothing's ever been touched. No slider has
yeah,
ever been touched in Lightroom,
yeah.
and it just blows their mind that you
Um,
can do that.
let's show everybody. I'm gonna pull up the Imagine app real quick. Let's show everybody how that looks. So AI profiles, talent AI profiles, and let's go to Rachel's, which is right here. So I'm gonna add to profile. Go back to the top. Here's Rachel's profile. And here, I would just literally click on the three dots here and hit Adjust Talent AI Profile. Now everything's collapsed. You can expand everything, you can collapse everything, but let's say specifically the tone curve, right? So
Yeah.
we know that you're flattening out the tone curve, right? So you would just go into Lightroom, and side by side basically match up however you're doing it. I don't think that's correct, but like
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think
I
it's all
just tell
zeros,
it to go
but
back to linear where it's just a straight line. So there's no
yeah,
adjustments, basically zero
yeah.
adjustments to it.
Yeah. So you would match it up or whatever the numbers are in Lightroom into here and hit save changes. And now you can see that this profile has some adjustments made to it that every single time I go and edit with it, it's going to do, you can see here, it's now got a dot showing that this has an adjustment. I can go in, I can do the same thing. Let's say, you know that Rachel's is slightly too warm for you. You want to cool it down a little bit. You can see there's now a circle that's not filled in. It shows that it hasn't been saved yet. But you can go into all these things. And what's really cool is that some of them are relative correction, like what you've been doing in the develop module, in the quick
Mhm.
develop rather. And you can say, go up, +4 relative in contrast, or like highlights. I always want my highlights to be -1, right? So you can fix values or correction, like relative corrections, depending on the slider. Not everything could do both. Like for example, exposure is only a relative correction of the AI value. It's not a fixed. I think down here there's another one. Is it calibration? Yeah, so fixed value. Calibration for tint is a fixed value. You can see all these for the colors. These are all fixed values. So it depends on the parameter, whether it can be one or the other or both.
Mhm.
But that's the beautiful thing. And then let's say you didn't like it, you can always reset everything, and now it's all removed, and now you don't have a profile adjustment on it at
Yeah.
all, right?
And it's easy to use, because I went in here and, I got an email from you like, "Hey, go play with this." And I was like, "All
Yeah,
right, let me go play with it."
yeah.
And literally within 10 minutes, I had it dialed in to look exactly the way I wanted it to look.
Yeah. It's such a nice thing to be able to now know that, um, from now on, every single time you send a job, whether it's, a headshot session, a wedding
Mhm.
session, a senior session, or eventually as Lori starts using it more and more, and
Yep,
creates her, her personal AI profile, boudoir sessions, and, like, all
absolutely.
that time, that those 15 minutes add up over
Yeah,
and
they
over and
do.
over again, right?
And
And then
now I've even moved into
yeah.
doing same day sales with a lot of my clients, obviously not
Mhm.
weddings, but a
Headshots,
lot of
though.
my family and seniors,
Yeah.
I'll do same day sales with them. I'll be photographing a senior downtown and I'll say, "Hey, listen, you guys run by, grab a quick bite to eat somewhere, grab a coffee or
Yep.
something, and meet me back at the studio in about an hour and we'll go
Mhm.
through all your images." And they come in and they're done. Like they're like, "How did you edit those so quick?" And then, what do I say? I just, I get it right in camera. I do not get it right in camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't tell my secrets, but I'm just like, well, a lot of times if you understand your camera and you get it right in the camera, then you don't have to do a lot of editing. And it's not the case. You still got to edit it, but it makes it so much easier because now I come through and here's the thing I used to do too. I used to call before I did my edit,
Mm.
my post production, my develop, because I didn't want to, you know, um, I didn't want to edit bad photos because it took too long. But
Mhm.
now I've found that when I run a portrait session, I don't do it for weddings because there's way too many images. But
Right.
when I shoot a portrait session and I have 200 images, I'll just run all 200 images through because it takes 10 minutes, max 10 minutes. And now when I go through calling, it makes it easier because they're all consistent. My eye isn't fooled by exposure or white balance shifts of whether it's a good image or not because they're consistent. So I've even got to where I call after the edit.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
So
Yeah.
and
So
I've used the calling before inside of Imagen,
mhm.
and I'm fast calling. So for me, I just like that control. I've used it; it did great, but I just like that control of calling myself
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
either I like it or I don't like it, and it's in or out.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Some people are very particular about their culling. Some people just want to fly through it and they don't want
Yeah,
to spend too much time.
yeah,
Some people have their method. They may not be particular, but they just like you just know good, not good, good, not good, and they fly through in that way, right?
yeah.
There's a great question here from Jen. Can you do this with masks? Great question, Jen. So, as you know, there is subject mask available, right? That anybody can use when they go in. I'll just pull it up real quick. So Fantastic question, Jen. So you go here, and I'm going to choose this one. And when you go and you have your additional AI tools of crop or straighten or subject mask, you can just check off subject mask, right? So right now, you do not have control over subject mask. However, what we are working on is we have already learned that people are loving profile adjustments. So what will be here soon, once it's done, is I think I might say edit settings, or it might be configure. I'm not sure what it's going to say, but basically it would be its own profile adjustments specific to subject mask. So when you go in here and you check it, you'll be able to edit what you want the subject mask to do.
Wow.
Similar to what you're doing for profile adjustments. So I have seen the prototype of it. I have not got my hands on it, the beta yet, or the alpha version of it yet. So, but I'm very excited for that, because that will we've gotten a lot of feedback on subject mask from everybody who's been using it, and we've already learned so much from profile adjustments. So now we know that the profile adjustments methodology will work to hopefully solve the feedback of what we got for subject mask. So
That's awesome.
that's
Yeah, and I've got a job right now I'm working on where I photograph some product in studio, and I photographed it on a plain white background. And I'm playing with the subject masking thing now, but the
mhm.
problem is it's too some of the products are too tone on tone, with the white background, because they're really light cream
Yeah,
color, and the
yeah,
AI doesn't pick it up quite as
yeah,
well for Lightroom. And so I'm having to do a lot of stuff manually, which kind of sucks.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but yeah, so I see that Bella Lumiere has a question about how I call fast in Lightroom. So
yeah.
I call two ways. For large jobs like weddings, I use Imagen, because one thing that I like about Imagen is that when the call is done, it brings those star ratings back into Lightroom, as opposed to some other calling software that you have to use in their native
Yep.
software, which is kind of clunky. One thing I like about Imagen is when I upload 3,000 images and I have Imagen do the base call, it comes back down into Lightroom, so that everything that's marked like 1 star, for example, that's a keeper for me. That's the way I assign it, or 3 stars is a keeper. And so now I'm able to sort by those 3 stars and quickly roll through and see if there's anything that I don't want that's a keeper. And then I tell it to show me everything that's not a 3 star. And I roll through really quickly and look to see if there is anything that is a keeper that in there. And so I adjust that call really quickly inside of Lightroom. And then I tell Imagen to proceed with the edit. And over time, that is going to learn it. With
Mhm.
portrait sessions where I'm only shooting 100, 150 images, I found it quicker for me to just call in Lightroom on my own. And one thing that I do is, if you're in the preferences section of Lightroom, there's a checkbox in there that says edit using smart previews instead of originals, and that speeds up Lightroom tremendously when you
Yeah.
tell it to build those smart previews and to edit using smart previews instead of originals. So you're not having that lag of letting that image load every
Yeah.
time in between. And I don't have a super fast machine, but as fast as I can hit the arrow key, those images are there and they're
Yeah.
crisp. So I'm not waiting
Yeah.
for them to load. So I'm able to call really quick that way. And um, so I do a thing
Yeah.
called calling in, which is basically what Imagine does. So there's two ways to call. You can call out, which means that you're hitting an X key for rejecting everyone
Right.
that you don't want in your proof set. And if you shoot, let's say, 3,000 images at a wedding, and I usually deliver around 900, I'm pressing that X key, over 2,000 times. But if I'm calling in, now I press the 1 or the 3 star key, 900 times. So it's a whole lot
Yeah.
quicker to do it. And Imagine uses the same thing. So when I call using Imagine,
Yeah.
when they come back in, I'm only seeing the ones that have the star ratings that I want. So I'm able to adjust that call pretty quickly.
One thing that you brought up was, like the speed of going through this. I think it's important to note that not only does smart previews make Lightroom faster if you edit with smart previews, but doing this all in the grid view, the library view,
Mhm.
not in the develop the
Correct.
develop view,
Yes.
because once you go in the develop view, Lightroom slows down. That's the nature of developing the photos. It's going to slow down because now it has to run all the stuff in the background to keep, to make it so you can edit, right? So versus just viewing and doing tagging and attributing and keywording and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is regarding smart preview specifically, not only is it better to do that in Lightroom for Lightroom's speed, but it also makes sending to Imagen faster because now we don't have to make our own version of smart previews to then upload to our servers. We just grab your smart previews and upload. So the the turnaround time in theory, just because we're not creating our own, is faster, right?
Yeah.
So there's that extra benefit. Um,
Yeah, and to kind of give you guys an idea on the speed of how long it takes to do something, I photographed the wedding last weekend. I came into the studio on Monday. I sent I it, and I have a really heavy trigger finger. I photographed, I think it was 3,500 images at that wedding, and I sent all 3,500 images up. It took maybe 20 minutes to upload them. The call came back about 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later, and then I adjusted it, and then I sent it back in for the edits, and those were about 15 minutes. And when I mean, all said and done, I was done with that job by lunch, like
yeah,
completely done with a wedding before lunch on Monday that I shot on Saturday. And so now I can go through and do a couple of, black and whites and things like that I want creative edits, create my vendor gallery. I'm sending my vendor galleries out Monday night. And man, you talk about like buzz on online and social. Man, all these vendors are now sharing these images because instead of
yeah,
sharing their crappy phone photos on Instagram that they took at the event, they're
yeah,
sharing my images. They're sharing
yeah,
my, social media post. And so,
yeah,
it's huge. Like what you guys have done, not only in just allowing photographers to have time to be with their families and not feel like you're chained behind a computer, but it's a marketing tool as well. And
yeah,
so when you're able to turn those vendor images around quickly, I mean, that's going to help your business all the way around.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the same day stuff.
Hmm.
I so I have my photography business. It is a side, photography business because I work at Imagine.
Uh,
Um, and so I don't take on jobs as much as I could or would if I was obviously focusing on my photography business full time. So my studio is literally what's behind me, right?
yeah.
I do cake smash sessions down here in my home studio. If I do a family session that's local, we come back here um, afterwards, and I have my family room is set up with an Apple TV, and my new workflow is while the family is upstairs, relaxing and just chatting after the session. I am culling the photos through Imagen and then immediately sending the results to edit. And I have it go into a collection in Lightroom that is synced through Lightroom Mobile,
Hmm.
which then on my Apple TV, that collection, which on Lightroom Mobile they call it an album. I don't know why there's a disconnect. Um, that's actually showing in a slideshow view on my Apple TV, and literally within 10 minutes of the slideshow going, it starts repeating now with the edits in place.
That's cool.
So I'm wondering like that. So that's my go-to of having like a same day within the
Yeah.
hour, preview of the photos. Um, I'm wondering what you're doing now and if you're going to how you're going to utilize Imagen more now that profile adjustments is here and can make that even faster for you.
Yeah. So our workflow for Boudoir is that clients arrive between 8:30 in the morning, and they're in hair and makeup until around 10. And then Lori will photograph them until around 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere along in there, about nine, you know, out 2 hours usually is about where she's at, maybe a little more. And then she'll tell the client, hey, why don't you go run grab lunch and come back in about 2 hours, and I'll have everything ready for you. And the reason why it's 2 hours is Lori needs to eat lunch too. So, Lori will basically just start the edit and start everything going. She'll walk in the back, make some lunch, come back up here. By the time she's up here, that'll be done. She'll do a quick call on them, and then she does a lot of bodyscapes. So that's something that Imagen can't really do those types of edits because those are ones where you've got to do a lot of brush work to take out light stands and things like that for bodyscapes. And so
Mhm.
she'll do all the brush work on the bodyscapes and things, and then she will prep the sales room, which is right behind me on the other side of that wall. She'll prep the sales room, and then client comes back in. They do ordering appointment. We do all of our sales appointments right out of Lightroom. So Lori does, star ratings, and keywording right inside of Lightroom during the sales appointment. And so when those images, when she's done, and it's time to place that order, I just open up the catalog. All the edited images are there. They're keyworded of which ones go in the album, which ones go on the wall portrait, which ones are for the mini box, which ones are for this. They're all keyworded. And so basically from there, it's just a retouch and order, retouch design and order. So nothing ever leaves Lightroom until we actually are exporting for the printed products.
It's a very efficient process, and
Mhm.
you're literally making the client choose what gets touched,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
I mean,
which is amazing.
yeah, nothing goes outside of Lightroom, period. I mean, not
Yeah,
even into Photoshop until it's
yeah,
ordered in a printed product in
yeah.
our studio.
It's awesome.
So, and
Um,
which is amazing because people are always like, "Well, I use all these different softwares," and I'm like, "Why?" Lightroom does so much stuff. It does. Like when you get
it's
into all the rating and keywording and things that Lightroom
yeah,
can do, use Lightroom as a catalog, like
yeah,
a cataloging software. It's what it's designed for.
yeah.
But people
Are
don't
you
use it. They mainly just use the edit module. And I don't understand because there's so
are
much
you
power in keywording.
yeah. Are you both a one Lightroom catalog person, a multiple? How do you
So yeah,
organize it all?
so we're per genre because
Mhm,
we've got three workstations in here, one for me, one for an intern, one for Lori.
mhm,
And if you're one catalog, we both can't be working at the same time, and
right.
so that causes a problem. So we have one catalog for weddings and portraits, and one for boudoir, and those are kind of two. So that way, I can be working on anything wedding or portrait related. Lori can be working on anything that's boudoir related, and then we just synchronize. We don't use Lightroom Mobile. I haven't made that jump
Mhm,
yet. I'm still a dinosaur on Lightroom Classic. And so we just use a sync software that when I need the boudoir catalog over here, instead of
yeah,
me having to go sit down on her desk and complain that she has her mouse speed set too fast, or something like
yeah.
that, then I just tell her synchronize it over, and she'll synchronize her Lightroom catalog over to my computer, and then I can open it and do anything that I need to do, and she'll sync it back before she goes back into it again. So it's not as clean as it could be. I know with some of the new technology with Lightroom and the way you can do different things, but we're too busy to even try to mess with rebuilding it at this point.
Well, no, I think separating it by genre is a really good
Yeah.
idea. So one question, because you just mentioned syncing.
Hmm.
So Lightroom has an issue where if you're syncing a catalog through Google Drive or through Dropbox or anything like that, it quite often can run into a weird issue where one file doesn't sync properly and now the catalog looks corrupt, and then you have to
Hmm.
basically, I find quite often I have to wipe out, if when I do that, I have to wipe out the previews and then rebuild previews, and
Yeah.
it's fine. I'm wondering what sync software are you using, because I discovered one that I think has been working flawlessly with
So we're
Lightroom.
using one called SyncBack, and
Think back, interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
and we don't sync through Google or Dropbox or anything. We sync through our own network, um,
Yep.
from
Yep.
computer to computer throughout our own network. So that way, and we've never, knock on wood, we've never had an issue with it catalog getting corrupt or anything like
Mhm.
that. We always back up. Every time we close it, we back it up to our server. So
Yeah.
there's that as well. But it works really well to be able to sync back and forth.
Yeah.
Within our ecosystem here.
So I was recommended to try out SyncThing, which is very similar. It utilizes your network. It can't sync outside of your network, um, and it's been working beautifully so
Yeah.
far. Knock on wood, no weird catalog corruption thing like
Mhm.
typically happens through a normal cloud thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has to do with local, in network syncing is just
Mhm. I'm
much
sure.
smoother
Yeah.
experience. So,
But I
um,
think back to your other question, a
yeah,
lot of photographers, because they feel that Lightroom slows down when you get a lot of images in there, they
yeah,
will go to one catalog per client, and so every
yeah,
client is a new catalog,
yeah,
and it works fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, other than the fact that you lose the keywording ability, you lose the whole cataloging ability of it.
yeah,
So as a wedding photographer, I know this doesn't have anything to do with relative adjustments, but as a wedding photographer, a big part of what we do is networking and marketing. And so frequently I'll have a vendor reach out to me and say, "Hey Jeff, we worked a lot of weddings together last year. I'm doing redoing my studio displays, or I'm rebuilding my website, or I'm going to a bridal show and I need samples. Um, can you get me images that we've worked together with so I can use your images?" And before, if you're using individual catalogs, now you have to go to every single job and
Yeah.
export out those images from every single job and even remember which jobs you worked with them on. Well, when
Yep.
you have all of your wedding images in one catalog, now I can just go to my keywords and I can say, show me everything from, not too shabby, for example, or show me
Mhm.
everything from Fiore Florist.
Yeah.
And I can use smart collections to say, not only
Yep.
show me everything from Fiore, but show me everything from Fiore that has a 3-star higher rating that I put on it.
Right.
So now
Yep.
with the click of a mouse, everything I've ever shot with Fiore that I've rated 3 stars is right there. And all I have to do is publish that to a gallery for her,
Yeah.
without ever even exporting it from Lightroom. I publish it directly up to a gallery, and I'm done. And before they even get to their computer, they got a download link, and so
Yeah.
that
I
really helps with marketing. And you lose that ability when you do individual catalogs.
yeah. I think for the photographers who are dead set on using, a Lightroom catalog per client or even per month or whatever, that short-term period, um, my recommendation would be once the job is delivered, you're happy with it, import that catalog into a master catalog. So
Mhm.
that way you can work on that smaller catalog if you want that extra speed boost, um, from Lightroom. Because yes, a large catalog does slow things down a little bit. But um, the fact that you can import to a catalog from another catalog
Mhm.
means that you can do the work on a small catalog and then combine it with a larger catalog
Yeah.
to use the full capabilities of Lightroom. That's what I would recommend for anybody who is dead set on using a smaller, short-term catalog. Um, so
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that works great. It's similar to what I do with some commercial stuff with Capture One.
Mhm.
When I'm shooting tethered with for commercial work, I do the same thing. So
Yeah, awesome. So
yeah,
So, um, Capture One has 2 types of, um, styles.
yeah,
One's a
they have
catalog like
sessions and
Lightroom.
sessions
Yeah,
and catalogs.
so Sessions is like monitoring a folder rather than a full cataloging
Yeah,
system, right?
essentially everything. It's like having your catalog, individual catalog, essentially, because everything you need for that job is contained in that folder. So I can
Okay.
now access it from home. So I
Yeah,
it doesn't need to live on your hard drive because everything it needs is in that folder, which is really cool.
yeah.
Um,
But you
you
can
know, uh,
import a session into a catalog?
yes.
Okay, that's cool,
Mhm.
that's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I can't wait to really dive into
yeah.
Capture One eventually.
Yeah, when I only use it for commercial because a
Mhm,
lot of time they have a thing called Capture One Live,
yeah,
and a lot of times I shoot, and the creative director might not be on scene, and so
mhm,
I can shoot tethered and send them a link, and they're seeing the images come in no matter where they are in the country. They're seeing those images come into their gallery, and they can rate them and give feedback right there, and it all comes back into my session catalog.
all in real
Um,
time. It's
yeah, in
beautiful.
real time. So they could be
Yeah,
in California and I could be shooting products in my studio back here
yeah,
and they can be giving feedback on, let's get a little bit wider shot so we can do this or,
yeah,
let's rate that one, let's keep that one. And I'm seeing their ratings come in real time, which is really cool. But aside from that, I don't really like Capture One. I don't like. I mean, I know that there are Capture One people that will swear by Capture One, but
right,
I just don't
right,
like the interface. I get lost in it. I struggle to get through shooting a commercial session. I like Lightroom a whole lot better.
yeah, but you can't from what I understand, Lightroom just can't come even close to Capture One's tethering
No,
capabilities,
not at
so,
all. Especially if
yeah,
you shoot Sony. If you shoot Canon or Nikon, the bigger brands, and not that
mhm,
Sony's not a bigger brand, but I don't know if there's some beef between Sony and Adobe or not, but man, they make it nearly impossible to shoot tethered in the
wow,
Lightroom with a Sony camera. It's horrible.
wow,
So
wow,
yeah,
alright. So now that more of this tedious editing work of everything that you were doing after you got your edits back, now that all that's basically removed from your workflow, now that profile adjustments are in place and you've got your profile adjustments dialed in, are you still doing any creative work for, most of your, I know Boudoir,
Mhm.
once Lori gets into it, she still has things that she's going to want to do with the skin, um, because that's the nature of Boudoir. But
Yeah.
um, for yours, for the headshots, the wedding, the commercial, all that stuff, are you doing any additional creative work now that you don't have to do any of the extra edits afterwards? And um, for some of that creative work, is there any that you outsource still, or do you do it all yourself?
So we don't outsource as much as we used to now. We don't have to. I mean, with Imagine, it's like that was the hard work, right? Any of the creative stuff like retouching and things like that stuff that I enjoy doing. I enjoy getting in there and doing the creative work. I hated dragging sliders and trying to take 1,000 images from a wedding and make them consistent.
Yeah.
That's what I really kind of was dreading about every big event. So
Yeah.
now with us, we're low volume studio. Lori shoots 1 to 2 sessions a week. I shoot probably 4 or 5 headshots a week, and about 10 weddings a year. So we're not really high volume. But we also value work home life. So we don't work when we're at home necessarily.
Mhm.
So when we're at the studio, we come in, we get the work done, and then we go home. As far as creative edits, we don't really do a ton of creative edits. I would say it's about as creative as we get are Lori's bodyscapes.
Mhm.
And those require a little bit of brush work on the back end, to kind of paint out the light stands and the table and things like that to be able to just see just the contour of the body. But as far as other creative stuff, I've kind of been playing around with Mid Journey a little bit, creating backgrounds that I can
Okay.
now do team photos and drop my team photos into a background that
That's
looks
fun.
realistic. So
Mhm.
I'm starting to play with that a little bit now that I have time to do it. But I think one of the big things is not creative edits. It's actually spending time working on growing your business now that you have time to take more sessions. you
Yes.
know,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah. It's
Is
amazing.
working on growing the business and getting more people in the door instead of always saying like, oh, because we've always been low volume because we wanted to be high end. Well,
Yeah.
and to be high end means that you had to turn around your images faster. You needed to be able to, give a good client experience. And now that we can do all of that faster and we can still, deliver that high end feel to a client, but we can do it much faster, means we can bring more people in the door. And
Yeah.
that's really what we've been focused on instead of like learning more creative edits and things.
Amazing. So we're going to wrap this up. I don't see any other questions. Um, do you have anything you want to share before I do the closing comments? Anything that you want to
Yeah.
share
I would just
for my
say
viewers?
if you're on the fence about trying Imagine, just do it. Like I'm telling you, it's a game changer. And I know that a lot of people I talk to, the first thing they say is, I just don't want to let go of that control. No one can do it like
Mm.
I can. And granted, I did not have a very specific style that I was stuck with or married to that I could only do, when I jumped on board with Imagine. Imagine kind of helped me find my style actually, so if you're one of those photographers that struggle with editing, um, and either you feel like you can't let go, build a profile and let it learn your style. But if you're a photographer like me who never really found his style, let them help you find a style. Let them help you find that consistency that you've been looking for. And I think that you know just a couple of jobs run through it and you'll just be amazed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. Jen asked one final question. Um, do you use a gallery delivery system?
Jen, by that do you mean like online hosting for wedding images and things like that, or just want to make sure I understand the question. Um, while we're waiting for you to write back, I'll answer what I think you're asking. So when I photograph wedding, for engagement, headshots, children, families, anything that's not a wedding, boudoir included, nothing ever goes online. That's all in person sales. 100%. But a wedding, they're going to want to see it. they're going to want to see those images. They're going to want to share it with friends and
Yeah.
family, So we do use a gallery, online gallery for those, but everything else is in-person sales. Um, and the reason why is in-person, I don't feel like, and I know that there are photographers that do make good money doing online sales. I have never had good luck with it. Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong, but I feel that unless someone is sitting in my studio, and they can pick up albums and books and they can see wall art, and we have control of that sale, I don't see us making the sales that we're making by putting them online. You know, so
Yeah.
the way we do it is everything but a wedding day is in-person sales. So when they come in, they sit in our sales room, we sell to them, and they don't go online. Period. Even if they order the complete set of digital files, they're delivered on a flash drive. We order flash drives from Photo Flash Drive, and that's what they're delivered on. And so that just it takes a step out for us. So if I'm not having to size them and upload them and deal with galleries and everything, I don't have to worry about it. For weddings, I do use a gallery. I use CloudSpot, and the reason why I love CloudSpot is two reasons. One, they have an awesome Lightroom plugin, so I just create my collections in Lightroom. I drag them down into that published collection, and I don't have to export them and then re-upload them to the web. Everything stays within Lightroom. But the second reason is that I can deliver for my corporate clients and my commercial clients. I can deliver TIFF, RAW, PSD, PDF, JPEG, like all kind of files, sort types. I can deliver in CloudSpot, and they're the only one that I know that you can do that with. So if you haven't tried it, their gallery is really clean. I'm not really a big fan of their online store. I don't even use it for that. I just strictly use it as an image delivery thing for weddings.
Mm.
Or really, it's not even an image delivery for weddings because I don't give them download rights. It's just so that they can share it with friends and family. They still receive their wedding images on a USB inside of a matte box with matted images. But I use CloudSpot. So long answer, but hopefully that answered your question.
I think you definitely answered a question. Regarding the IPS versus online gallery, I think that also comes down to being a high end studio. Like
Mhm,
being a high end studio, you want to have that personal touch. At the same time, that IPS is going to do better for you sales wise. So it's like a
mhm.
good for your client, good for you and your
Yeah,
business
yeah,
in one. But IPS takes learning how to do it.
it
I
does.
know for me, I would suck at it, so I don't do it.
Yeah, and it does take, and a great example of that is when I first started. Back in college, I was a car salesman. That was
Mm,
my college job. I worked as a car salesman, and as a car salesman, you close a deal no matter what. So if you come on the lot and you're looking at a Mercedes, and I pull your credit and I go, "There's no way you're getting this Mercedes," I'm trying to flip you to the Toyota because the only thing I want to do is make a sale.
mhm,
And that hurt me early on in my career because people would come in and they would be like, "Well, how much is this album?" And I would be like, "Well, it's this much." And then they would get quiet and I'd go into car sales mode. I'd be like, "But we have this other one that is only this much." And it does. I was always the first one talking, and Lori would shoot
mhm.
daggers at me the whole time. And there was a time where she kicked me out of the sales room. She said, "Just get out. You can come in through the slideshow, and then you go. All right, Lori's going to take care of you." And
Yeah,
I would have to leave. And so I had to learn it. And once
yeah,
I learned it, and I got confident with just stating my price and shutting up, that's when I started getting the same kind of sales that Lori was getting at the time.
yeah. It's definitely a learning
So
process. Definitely, definitely, definitely. Um, thank you. Next 38 photography. Sorry, I don't know who your first name.
that is
This is good
Keisho
stuff.
and Margot.
Oh, that is Keisho. Okay,
Yeah, that's Keisho and
nice.
Margot. So
I didn't know they were
Keisho
in the
owns Next
photography business.
38 and Margot owns Ava Rose Boudoir. And so they're
Nice.
they're huge fans of Imagen as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We love them as well. Sorry, I didn't know the name of their business, but there's so many. Business names.
Yeah.
It's easier when everybody has their name in it because then you.
Mhm.
um, okay, so we're gonna close this up. I'm going to just say a couple final words.
Okay.
If you, thank you, Jeff. First of all,
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
sorry
for
that.
having me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that Lori couldn't make it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry that your household is under the weather, but I'm very glad that you're able to make it. Um, and for you watching, if you have enjoyed this conversation with Jeff and we would like to know more about the next live stream, know you're invited to be part of the bigger conversation. Join the Imagen community. There's a QR code right down there. In there, you get access to exclusive conversations, live events, Q&As with the Imagen founders, and so much more. We hope to see you there. You heard from Jeff. It changed his business, really, and in a lot of fantastic ways. And I'm fairly certain that as soon as we're off of this call, he's going to go outside and get some fresh air. So,
Probably more going to want to take a nap because I'm
probably.
still a little under the weather myself. So.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed that I made it through here without coughing a whole lot. So
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. So there's a QR code right up on the screen right now. You can get 1,500 free edits. And finally, I've had this up every so often. If you are already a trial user of Imagen and you've been wanting to subscribe, and only subscribers get access to Imagen's culling feature, you can save 10% on your first invoice by using the coupon code Make It Yours. It's right there on the screen. Just go into the Imagen app and then go to my account and click on subscribe, and then it'll bring you to a page to subscribe. Put in the coupon code Make It Yours, and it is all yours. So with that all said, thank you, Jeff, again for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you in the next live.
hey, bye guys.
Success for me, it's having freedom to create, having freedom to spend time with my loved ones, not being a workaholic, and just waking up with a smile in my ugly face.
It is not an exaggeration to say that Imagen has changed my life.
Imagen has definitely helped me save time so I can spend more time with my family and do other work while not having to sit around and edit all day.
I am notoriously the worst emailer on the planet, and now that I started using Imagen, my emails are actually answered.
My time after starting using Imagen has changed completely. I prefer to let them do the rest of the heavy work for me, and I can manage my time trying to get new bookings and trying to take care of the business in the long run, instead of only thinking about